so many people need this. There's not a person in this building today or on your team that doesn't know somebody right now suffering from the opiate epidemic. We're going to lose probably 15 lives during this interview in America today alone.
All right, guys, welcome back to Growth Minds. Today we've got a special guest. We've got Darren Prince on, who's the author of Aiming High. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So obviously there is some relation to the show here in that a few weeks ago we had Dennis Rodman on the show, and I know you are his agent. And I've been looking at some of the interviews that you two have done, and almost half the interviews with Dennis Rodman, you're in it. Like, I've seen the one with Fox News, the one, I think there was like one with ESPN as well. It's almost like you guys are best friends. What's the reason that you guys go on the show together?
Well, recently, from his 30 for 30 documentary, I think it touched on mental health, his alcoholism, struggles with his underlying self-worth and self-esteem, which ultimately, is the reason he's turned to alcohol. And he helped me over 11 years ago get sober from my opiate addiction. He was one of several of my celebrities that knew how bad it got for me. And now he's on this amazing path himself, close to 5 months, no alcohol. And I think indirectly that kind of helped him after he helped me. I just celebrated 11 years myself.
So it's only been 5 months for him. I had no idea when he came on the show that it was like such a recent...
It was new. Yep.
Whoa.
I think the documentary, it's touched so many people in a way that he just in a random restaurant through an airport, he could be just out and about and somebody comes over to him and talks about how the sister brother themselves inspired by watching him talk about his pain and his struggles.
Yeah.
And I think it's finally given him a real reason to understand that life, as Dennis Rodman, is probably just starting. He's got the ability now to really help change and save lives around the world.
That's amazing. And you guys have such a interesting history of the roller coasters that both of you guys have gone through. Talk to us a little bit about how you first met, because it seems like you guys really are this dynamic duo. What's the first time you guys met?
Yeah, we met in 1996. I think it was Game 5 of the NBA Finals against the Supersonics. He was the biggest thing in the world.
Yes.
Bigger than Michael Jordan. I was at that game. Michael was already in Chicago for God knows how many years, and that building shook with that Chicago Bulls theme song, when that intro song, when Dennis's name from Southeast Oklahoma State. I never seen anything like it. And my friend Jeff Hamilton, a renowned leather jacket designer, introduced me to Dennis on the court after he made the 2 free throws at the end of the game to win. I think they went up like 3-1 or 3-2 in the series, and Dennis just took me right in. I met him and his agent at the time and said, dude, we're going to Crazy Horse. Why don't you come meet us? Let's talk about what you do. Maybe we can make some money together. So we broke bread at a strip club at 1 o'clock in the morning over lap dances. And it was the start of a beautiful friendship.
That's how the best friendships start.
I mean, you're with him, who was king of the world. It was a big experience back then.
I mean, going to a strip club with anyone any of the basketball players is another revelation. But with Dennis Rodman, I can't even imagine what that's like.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It really was. And I mean, we totally hit it off from there on out, and had a love and respect for one another. And it's like a big brother, little brother. We fight, we have our moments, but we know we're lifers with each other. Neither one of us are leaving one another. And I said, the day that you're gone too, we're going to be looking out for you and your family. And it's a special bond. I have that with most of my clients. I'd say a lot of them, but his is truly unique and special.
Yeah, and I see the lineup of some of the major celebrities that you do represent, Charlie Sheen to Hulk Hogan, Magic Johnson. A lot of these guys do have this pattern or a relationship with having been an addict and being in that roller coaster ride. Mm-hmm. Is that something that creates this unified bond, or at least can they relate to you better because of the fact that you've also gone through that?
I think depending on the client, but I think even Magic Johnson, he didn't have a substance abuse issue, but he had his own issues, obviously, when he had to come out with the HIV announcement. And I think they, what's made them so great and so iconic and the best to ever do what they do at their craft, record breakers, Hall of Famers, but the Hall of Famers of Hall of Famers, the greats of the greats. They had to push through something. They had to deal with some level of adversity, some disappointment,
Yeah.
some enormous challenge, like when Magic missed a handful of shots and had a horrible game, and he came back in '84 after Celtics won in Game 7, and the LA Times said tragic magic, and he used that tragic magic to motivate himself, and a year later won the NBA championship in Boston Garden. And I think when they see that happen in real life, it means a lot. You know, Hulk always tells me stories about Andre the Giant, the slam heard around the world, and what had to go into that, and tearing his rotator cuff and not realizing until 20 minutes later
Oh,
when he was in the locker room after he pushed up over 650 pounds over his head, but because of the adrenaline and all his physical ailments that he's been through over the years and
yeah.
challenges through his divorce and everything. I mean, we bond on a personal level. Charlie Sheen, the same thing. I mean, he's a beautiful soul. He just celebrated 2 years. And, you know, most of these guys, when we talk, 90% is about life, 10% is about business. The business
Yeah.
is easy when
Yeah.
you've got iconic figures like that. It's that special brotherly love, and I've got it sisterly too. I was with my girl in Florida past 2 days, and we had Carmen Electra on the phone for 2.5 hours, laughing our ass off 2 nights ago, telling stories and talking
That's
about
amazing.
life. And she was on speaker, and she hung up the phone and said, "D, it's always so therapeutic with you." She goes, just to laugh and just enjoy life, and
Yeah.
that's what it's about. It's important.
Yeah, I mean, when you're working with really the iconic figures that have gotten there, a lot of it, what makes it breaks them is the psychology, is really getting out of their own way. And it seems like you're not only an amazing agent, but you're also this partner that is with them by all of these different challenges. How have you gone through the roller coaster ride of going through? Like, it must be exhausting just thinking about just even one person, just looking at Dennis Rodman and the stories that he's gone through in the past decade, just having like a full-time job managing his personality and the roller coaster ride. It must be insane. So how is it that you're really in charge of all of these different roster of amazing but really people that live crazy lives?
Yeah, I think I've just been doing it for so long. So many times when I do interviews now or I do keynote speeches and it comes up to like, how in the world do you juggle? I mean, Chevy Chase, I love him to death. He's on this huge tour right now, this Q&A tour with Mills Entertainment. And a week ago he did LA, and nothing better in the morning. Proud of you. I love you. Thank you for always getting my back. You know, Ric Flair goes into the hospital. We thought we were going to lose him twice in the past 3 years. And when my dad passed away, he's the first person to call me. You know, I think all of that, it just creates this ability to understand that we literally will put ourselves out there and do whatever we have to do to make sure our people are treated like family. It's friendship first. It's the love. It's the bond. And I just think that makes it so much easier. It's almost like having 11 brothers and sisters
Yes.
that you love them all equally. And you realize that there's going to be challenges. And you realize that there's these people that just don't trust. Everybody wants something from them. And as agents, we're the complete opposite, because I look at it as when we call them, it's about bringing them opportunities. We're not a business manager. We're not a lawyer or an accountant. No disrespect. I know they work hard, but as agents, you're actually bringing them opportunities to make money.
Yeah.
And elevate their brand and bring opportunities to increase their, notoriety around the world and keep their legacy alive and their foundations, whatever it is. So I just think it's a little bit of a different respect factor. But yeah, it takes a lot of juggling, though, getting back to that. But I've got a great team around me that helps me, because I certainly can't do it all myself. I have a great assistant here in LA. I've got my social media team. I've got 5 agents back in New Jersey, 1 in Maryland, and my boy Nicky C out here in
Is New Jersey the headquarters for
New Jersey's
the Prince Marketing
headquarters.
Group?
Yeah, I've got my boys Frankie, both Steve back there that've been with me forever.
Yeah.
Nicky C's out here in Beverly Hills. I've got somebody that knows how to juggle and protect me the best that they can, the way that I protect the celebrities, because ultimately I'm the Prince Marketing Group.
Yes.
So they kind of know if there's a time where I'm shot or I need time to rejuvenate or I got to focus on one person that day, they need to pick up the slack.
Yes.
So you can't just grab anybody to be in that environment. They really better know what they're doing. You know?
Yeah, I mean, and here you are, you've built this entire career by really being behind the scenes in many ways, right? Because you're representing the epitome of the celebrity, the iconic figures from sports to entertainment. And you recently made this switch of becoming this public figure yourself. You wrote a book called Aiming High.
Mm.
You're doing keynote speaking from schools to all these different conferences.
Mhm.
And we talked a little bit off air about this. So, what's been this shift for you to now become the person that's presenting this message to people as a public figure?
You know, my whole life I thought it was always about Darren Prince, the super agent, whatever artificial title, superficial title somebody wanted to give me, or the media would call it, and I bought into it. And a lot of that is as a teenager, I had my own self-esteem issues and lack of self-worth and never being a part of. And when I started a baseball card business in 1984, it became a huge multi-million dollar company. It was making hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time I was 16. All that stuff was inside of me. All that stuff was just buried.
Yeah.
And it was always like Darren Prince always had to prove that he was somebody to the people that, casted him as this severely learning disabled child that was in small classrooms with 6 kids, while everybody else had 50 or 60 in big classrooms. And I took it with me into the real world. And eventually the baseball cards went to a sports and celebrity memorabilia company, and then the agency Prince Marketing Group. And I was living a lie for a long time. I tell people when I speak what was once living to use turned out to using to live. And I had a high-end opiate addiction with painkillers. And it stopped working at a certain point where I had all this stuff on the outside. Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, Evel Knievel, all these, the most iconic of the iconic, the biggest stars of any room they'd ever walk into. Yet I never felt worthy of being with them for a single second. When I was home alone in my head later that night, I felt like a broken piece of crap. And I had to be high in the moment, and I had to be high when I got home at night, just to deal with the fact that I didn't think for a single second I belonged there. So on July 2nd, 2008, when my God, as I called my higher power, when I cried out for help for a single day of freedom to get me sober, and he heard me because I stood up and I flushed the last of my opiates and wound up in a 12-step meeting that night in New York City. By the grace of God, I thought my life was over, and it was actually just beginning on July 2nd, 2008. So when you get a gift like that and you have a platform like I have with some of these revered figures, and they know that the greatest thing they've ever seen me accomplish in my life is sobriety one day at a time,
Yeah.
it was an easy choice to get the message out there.
Mm. And what's been that transformation like for you? I know being unworthiness, and I can totally relate. I mean, I'm interviewing guys like yourself, to Lewis House is a mutual friend, to
Love 'em.
Darren, Dennis Rodman, all these great figures, and obviously, I imagine you must have grown so much just being like a sponge by just being around these guys and how they conduct themselves. Not necessarily by the advice they give, but just seeing how they conduct themselves, seeing what their mentality is. But I can totally relate to you. But what's been that transformation like? Do you feel worthy now by giving your message out to all these different people around the world?
Like never before. It's sometimes it doesn't feel real because I think back to that young Darren Prince and the pain that he was in for so long, to be able to wake up every single morning now and love the person that I am, and just know I finally found myself. I found my purpose in life in the world of recovery.
Mm.
And to get in front of an audience of, it could be 4,000 people I've spoken to a couple dozen at a Barnes & Noble's book signing, and know that some God-given words are coming out of my mouth as a source of strength to help change and save a life in that room. Because there's never been a keynote I haven't delivered where somebody's life has not got changed or saved. Because I hear about it, they either come up to me, or if it's in a school, the principals let me know the next day. I'm doing esteemable acts, and those esteemable acts finally created that self-esteem I was looking for my entire life.
Yeah.
And most people never understand what it's like to look in the mirror and love every single thing about yourself. Know that I'm still flawed, but know that I'm so comfortable talking about the uncomfortable. Makes me unstoppable. I can be in front of 50, 60,000 people right now at Yankee Stadium and talk to them
Yeah.
like I'm talking to you.
Because it's
Because
an authentic story
Yeah.
about
And
you and your journey.
Joel Olstein's a dear friend, him and his wife, and we did Good Day New York together 5 minutes apart back on October 2nd when my book came out. And I was always a big fan. I got to develop a personal relationship with him, and he was blown away by it. I've been to Lakewood Church several times, and he's like, what you've done with your message, it's just, It's incredible because so many people need this. There's not a person in this building today or on your team that doesn't know somebody right now suffering from the opiate epidemic. We're going to lose probably 15 lives during this interview in America today alone. So like I said, I was given a gift, and I feel with that great power comes great responsibility. And I know people who are anonymous in the program of 12 steps, but it's not for me because I need to inspire somebody every single day to say it doesn't matter if you're from Park Avenue or Park Bench or Yale to jail. Drug addiction and substance abuse does not discriminate. And I've got a message that needs to be heard.
Why do you think in the recent times there's been such an epidemic of opioids?
I mean, I think a lot of the younger generation, there's bullying, there's social media. There's not enough courage to speak up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Darren Princes out there that want to keep it inside, that think from vaping, smoking weed, stealing a pill from their parents' medicine cabinet, drinking on the weekends, because they don't feel good enough being them. They don't think, why am I doing this? They just know that they're feeling good, and it's giving them what they're missing, which is exactly what happened to me in sleepaway camp at 14 years old when I took liquid Demerol from a nurse, having no idea what it was. And all of a sudden, I felt like Superman.
How did that happen?
I had stomach pains, severe stomach pains. I thought I had to go to the hospital, and she gave me this clear cough syrup cup with green liquid in it, and I was flying. 3 minutes later, it tasted disgusting. I almost vomited, but every insecurity I just told you about went away in a second. I got back to the bunk. I was the cool guy, the funny guy, the buff guy, the good-looking one. I had the courage to go to the bunk next door and flirt with these girls for the first time in my life at 14 years old. There was 30 of them. And I remember it wasn't like being the class clown. I was the cool guy. And it's like, this is amazing. What the heck is happening to me? And woke up the next day thinking nothing of it, did all my activities. And that very next night, I'm lying in the bunk thinking, God, that feeling was amazing. How do I get more of it? And at 14 years old, I learned to lie and con. And I look at the couch and I bent over. I go, all right, my stomach is killing me, man. We got to go back to the nurse. I did it for 3 straight weeks until my mom and dad came up for visitation day and found out what I was taking. And,
oh my God.
Yeah.
Because you go on this high where you feel a sensation that you really never felt before. And the only thing that's different is, of course, the medication that you took. And more importantly, how easy it was for you to get. I mean, it's insane that it's just. I mean, that's the problem with the opioids, right? It's there's a misalignment in the healthcare system for them to just provide you this kind of stuff. So when you're 14 and you have this, 3 weeks goes by. What happened then? What was the stage that you were in?
It became a way of life. It was my favorite part of the day. Before I went to bed at night, every single night, I knew like clockwork what I was going to do. And that last hour or two that I was awake was the greatest time of my life because I knew whatever that green juice was or that green liquid was going to make me cool, comfortable, finally a part of, finally accepted, finally the man. And it was heaven. It really was. I was floating for 3 weeks. But I don't blame the nurse or the camp because back then, it wasn't as much of a controlled substance. 3 months later, I had my wisdom teeth taken out.
Yeah.
And same thing happened. Dentist gave my mom this white pills. I had no idea what they were. I took 2 when I came home. That exact same feeling came back.
Wow.
And once those 8 pills were gone, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I needed to lie and I needed to con. And I went downstairs. I held my cheek. I put on the crocodile chest. I said, Mom, we got to go to the emergency room. I have a horrible infection. She's like, oh, my God, what's wrong? I said, the dentist, there's something really wrong. She calls up the dentist as a loving mother who wants to see their child suffer. 14 years old. It was 35 years ago. Took me back the next morning, 8 a.m. I worked the crocodile tears up and gave her another 8 pills.
And they had no idea this was going on.
They had no idea. I had no pain. I just wanted more of it.
Right. I mean, there was pain, I'm sure, and somewhere inside. You just wanted.
There was pain in here and in here and in here, not in here.
Yeah. And what was that? Were you, as growing up in elementary or even in high school, in the very early days before you were 14? What were you like? I mean, to have gone through this at 14, and to need this kind of medication to make yourself feel better. I'm curious to know what your childhood was like when growing up.
I had an amazing childhood, great loving mother and father, amazing parents, a sister that I was close with. I had a lot of guy and girlfriends. People wanted me to come to their house on the weekend and hang out. I just never felt worthy of it. I always felt socially inept. I always felt awkward. I never felt like the group of friends that wanted me to hang out with them, that I was, you know, cool enough to be a part of that group. There's a lot of times I like being a loner. I think even my baseball card business, it was fictitious. When I was 12 and 13, I would come home at night and, after going to movies with the friends, and I would sort everything, and I'd put little price tags on the plastic sleeves. In my head, I had my own business. I'd be up for 4, 5, 6 hours doing inventory, but I didn't know where to sell it all. But that's what made me happy, being stuck in my own head. And I
Yeah.
started gravitating to the numbers on these cards. And my dad realized at one point the statistics that were on their cards, I was memorizing everything. And he knew I was becoming a statistical genius. Now,
Wow.
in geography or history or Spanish or French, I was a disaster. If you put numbers in front of me, I'll take a math teacher to school. And he knew that. And so when I sat down one day and I said, hey, I need insurance on my baseball cards, he thought I was a little bit crazy. And then he challenged me, why do you need the insurance? And I told him there was a baseball card show. And that was the first time in my life at 14. I prepared for 2 weeks every single day.
Yeah.
With Steve Simon, who's the VP of my agency now, ironically. That was the biggest day of my life. I knew that that was the day I was going to become somebody. And I made over $1,000 that afternoon. So I finally got
Crazy.
a little bit of self-worth for the first time in my life.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you had something special. Your dad told you that you were the statistical genius, and you had friends, you had a great social life, great parents, loving life. I'm curious to know where this sensation of feeling unworthiness comes from. It's very common, actually, amongst a lot of these top celebrities, including Dennis Rodman. I imagine he's talking about how basketball was a fluke and how all these things that he had just didn't feel like it was his, like he deserved it. So, have you thought about just writing this book and this journey that you went through in your early childhood? What you think it was that made you feel this unworthiness?
I can't really point it outside the fact that I knew in second grade, when I was probably 7, I felt isolated. I remember I had a teacher named Mrs. Reich, God bless her, because I was super close with her. I know she's not here anymore, but they put us in different colors, and like the yellow and the gold group were the smart kids, and the blue is like the middle level, and the red, I hate using the word, so I'm going to use the initial, the R word. I think you guys could figure it out. We called ourselves the R only group, and so that word stuck with me my entire childhood, that I was mentally challenged. And I was in the group that had 4 of us. Everybody else was 10, 20, 30. I remember a history teacher that I'll never forget her name, and I know she didn't do it on purpose. Her name is Mrs. Stecker. And there was 4 of us in the back row of a classroom of probably 50 kids. She starts walking the test around. I'll get you for your test in the back once I'm done with everybody else, okay? Just give me a minute. You hear that stuff as a teenager, and it's going somewhere inside of your soul. It's going somewhere inside your core.
Yeah.
To realize you're being treated as special and not for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And those little things, and not speaking up, which is why I'm so passionate and so obsessively driven to make a change in the high school systems and grammar school, to tell these kids, don't be Darren Prince, speak up now, because this is what's going to happen to you. And you'll be lucky to be alive and make it out of the high school years right now, because the fentanyl and all the crap that's out there. By all rights, with what I took, I shouldn't be alive now to even be talking to you guys. But I know it's because I didn't have the courage to speak up. Like, how come Darren Prince always needed to put something in his system just to fit in?
Yeah.
Because I didn't have the courage or the strength to tell my mom and dad what was happening, to tell a teacher, to tell a guidance counselor, to tell a friend. I just kept it all inside.
And part of that is feeling unworthy. So you didn't feel like you could speak up, and that would mean that this would just continue happening, which would make you feel, again, it's like a negative feedback loop, right? Because you would just keep going through this cycle.
Vicious cycle.
Very vicious cycle. And then this carried through this career that you had, which is an amazing career, right? You did have this amazing skill, which was business, being able to understand people, read people, network. And I feel like that's really been your true skill set. I want to dig into that a little bit more. So here you are 14, and you are raking it in, right? You're making thousands and thousands of dollars. What were you doing at that time?
I was setting up at baseball card shows on the weekend, and that was the height of the industry, which now it's as big as it's ever been. Gary Vee is a good friend of mine. So many of these guys, Dan Fleischman, I was with them in Chicago for the National Sports Collectors Convention a few months ago, and it's hysterical. These guys are just diving right in because it's the most amazing investment. It's so exciting. But I was one of the OGs. Like, these guys will tell you, I was right there. There was about 4 of us that were like the kings of the industry. There was 3 teenagers and a guy by the name of Alan Rose and Mr. Mint. May he rest in peace.
Yeah.
I actually just told ESPN they should do a 30 for 30 on him because this industry wouldn't exist without him. And we were like legal drug dealers. It was the craziest thing ever. We would just set up at shows and take these big expensive ads out in the Bible of the industry every week. There was no internet back then. And when we would set up at shows, because we were so media friendly, all the big talk shows, the newspapers, USA Today, New York Times, New York Post, would want to speak to us because we were like these prodigies.
Yeah.
It's almost as if you, I know, like Josh at StockX, I know is a friend of mine. Like it's almost like that. If you were like the guy that started this sneakerhead craze, that's what it was with the baseball cards.
Right.
And we became like little rock stars. So when you're broken and insecure and all of a sudden you start having this money come in, the recipe for a disaster, you know? And although I knew on that Saturday or Sunday when I was hustling on a hotel conference room floor, I never felt so comfortable. I'd have the same feeling up at night as I did later in life as an agent. You know, I would come back with a pocket full of cash and have to go over the expenses and the reports and sit down the next day with my accountant. A lot of times I was lying. I was cheating him because I wanted to hold the cash. I wanted to go to school because I was so insecure with thousands of dollars in my pocket.
This is when you're 14.
All my friends out for lunch and just like be the big deal.
Yes.
To be like nobody. I'm making more money than my friends' parents were making, and then getting notoriety because of it. You know, but again, it was all looking back at it now. It was all looking for an outside fix that was ultimately an inside job because I never spoke up.
And did you enter that business knowing that there was obviously a lot of money to be made because of the fact that you felt unworthy and you knew that money was going to be this vehicle for people to like you in school?
I think I did. I had a teacher I'm very close with to this day, and I mentioned in my book, Elliot Lovey, and he was my intro to business teacher, and he gave us a challenge at 14 about going home and creating a business, and that's kind of how it all happened. And with my dad, may he rest in peace, being my mentor in business, I knew I had a plan. I knew how to execute that plan. I had an idea of what the expense would be to exhibit my collection and start selling them. And then the light bulb went on. I go, wait a minute. During the week, I could actually become a broker now for these stockbrokers that are spending a fortune. So I can go on the weekends to these shows, buy a Mickey Mantle record for $5,000, tell them the next day I got to charge them $7,000.
Yeah.
And that's what it'd be like. I was the only kid in school that had a cell phone in 1985. There was a company called Bell Atlantic, and it was a heavy metal phone with an aluminum bottom with a rubber antenna and a leather case.
I remember seeing that.
And it was so expensive because they just didn't exist. It was about $3 a minute, but I'd pay a couple of my big Italian football player friends to be in front of my locker so I could take the calls in between class because I was making so much money. I didn't want to lose opportunity to my other competitors that were brokering baseball card deals too.
Oh my God! Where do you even put those? You have like a bag, just
it was a shoulder thing. They were big. They probably weighed about 6 or 7 pounds back then.
Oh my God! Do you have a picture of one of those?
I still have the original one. When my parents sold the house, I saved it. Actually, when my dad passed away and I sold the house for my mom, I saved it. It's actually in storage of the phone. It's pretty amazing.
Can you send us one of those, or is it?
I could go back? Yeah, I can ask somebody to go take a picture of it.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So here you are. You're having this big success, and imagine you were being very popular now at this point,
exactly.
Right? So you felt a little bit of worthiness. You felt that this was this positive feedback loop that you now had.
Yep.
You had this one negative side, which was the medicine, which is kind of putting you in, but now you're making money, which is the positive side. So then what happened?
You could say it was drugs, actually, because at that point I was dabbling with almost everything: weed, alcohol. It wasn't just prescription pain meds.
Right, right. And you were functioning.
Very.
And then at 20 years old, you decide to sell one of the businesses that you had.
I sold the baseball card business because of that deep-rooted insecurity inside me. I thought it'd be even sexier and cooler to be involved in the sports and celebrity industry, and that was by
Yes.
doing these autograph signings with some of the biggest athletes and celebrities in the world. And
Yes.
so, oh, that's way cooler than baseball cards. This is great. So I'm going to parlay that money and build up this amazing merchandise company and get to sit in a hotel room with Muhammad Ali for 3 hours and Pamela Anderson and Chevy Chase and pay them tens of thousands of dollars to sign X amount of items. So I get to develop a relationship with them
Yeah.
and then have this great distribution network of all these companies around the world that are going to sell the product. I did that for about 5 years.
How did you first sell the baseball business? Because wasn't it so dependent on you being the main the person that's really running everything?
Mm.
Or what was like the process of selling that when it's such a person dependent business?
The baseball card business wasn't as much so, believe it or not. It was more my database. But I had some of the highest spending collectors in the world most were very private,
Yeah.
but knew that the company taking over was going to do the best job possible to make sure they were going to facilitate getting them the highest graded cards for the best value. And so between that and whatever inventory was left, that's how I was able to sell it.
Gotcha. And then where did the idea of getting into the new business come from?
I was just always fascinated when I would go to these shows that I would see Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, Pete Rose, Reggie Jackson. They had lines wrapped around the corner with fans that were standing there with baseballs and bats and jerseys and photos.
Yeah.
I started asking questions about it one day, and this is so cool. Like, you could come meet your hero in person. Like, most people wouldn't even think this is ever possible.
Yeah.
Get a photo with them, get something signed. And like I said, I think the insecurity and the attractiveness of being around a star made Darren Prince feel even better.
Because you knew then your friends or your family members or whoever else around you will see you around the celebrity and they'll be like, whoa, Darren's a cool guy.
And I went for the most famous man in the history of the world. They say outside of Jesus Christ, Muhammad Ali,
Wow.
the most written about person of all time. And I started with the biggest. I mean,
That was your first.
He was the first one I did a signing with. Harlan Warner, who's one of my business mentors too, that was incredibly influential with me becoming an agent, was his agent. And Jeff Hamilton, again, who introduced me to Dennis and his agent years later, introduced me to Harlan, and he explained how the business works. He goes, you're going to pay Muhammad Ali $20,000. He's going to sign 500 items. He'll sign gloves. He'll sign boxing trunks. He'll sign photos. I'll tell you where to get them. And then it's your job to just sell the merchandise. And the stuff flew. I mean, the minute I put the ads in, it just went
Boom, boom,
yeah,
boom.
like, it sold right out. And we had to, 2 months later, meet him again for another signing.
So it wasn't a commission thing where you sell 100,000, Muhammad Ali gets 20%. It's he just
We were a merchandise business at that point. That wasn't the agency quite yet. That was basically just sitting down, having these amazing experiences with them behind the scenes. Just talking life and just getting to spend amazing time with them. And I got very close with Lonnie, his wife, and Muhammad, and he had an assistant, Kim, back then, and just beautiful people. And we would do dinners at night. I would meet them on the road somewhere, and Muhammad would be like, I'm hungry. And that's when he was able to really talk before the Parkinson's set in.
Yeah.
And, man, to just be out with him. I can't even tell you countless times. New York City, McDonald's, he loved. It could be McDonald's, it could be Palm Steakhouse, Morton's, whatever it is. And you walk into a room with him, it doesn't matter who you are. Yeah, him and Smokin' Joe, who I'm a little bit more partial to because Joe was my exclusive client for years. They were the kings of all kings.
Yeah.
There'll never be two guys that'll own a room like that. In fact, I was with my girl at Nobu about a month ago, and Lionel Richie was there, and I saw him, and he knew right away that I was somebody. And I walked over to him. I go, we met at Mastra's, Smokin' Joe Frazier's agent. He goes, my God, that's right. And I go, you ran out after him. Joe didn't know who you were. And you had to remind him about the limousine company. He goes, oh, my God. He goes, so I told him my name. He goes, Prince, I remember. We gave each other a hug. We took a photo. And we were there talking for 15 minutes. He goes, those were special men, man. Because I talk about them all the time because they were just different level. They come from a different cloth. And, so again, as this broken, insecure, kid to just walk into a room where any president or the biggest stars in the world would be become kids. It's a recipe for disaster too.
You were in your early 20s at that time where you haven't fully developed. This is
and I might have school teachers, doctors, lawyers, business people, friends of my parents, media people up my ass to come meet Muhammad Ali or Smokin' Joe or Magic Johnson, whoever it might have been, because they knew I started this company. We became the king of autograph signings.
How did you first approach him? Because, would you say in some ways, as controversial it is, that the drugs actually helped you gain that inner confidence to be able to go for such a big Icon as your first major client. Would you say in that sense there was this cycle where you were on drugs and that helped you get that inner confidence to approach someone like that? You get him, and then you're like, okay, so now I need more drugs because that's what I guess you kind of associate that to have the confidence that you did.
I got to be very careful when I speak to high school kids, and
Yes.
they bring that up all the time.
Yes.
And they say, "Do you think without the drugs you would have built the business?" And there's a good point to it. The second part of it is I was on the verge of bankruptcy, as I talk about in my book in 2005. I made a huge mistake, almost went to prison in the memorabilia business because I wasn't paying attention to the business like I should have. And I was involved in a situation where I was investigated for mail fraud, selling fraudulent Michael Jordan autographs that I didn't think were fraudulent because I was so caught up in the partying and the fact that I thought I was so untouchable dealing with all these other stars that I depended on a second source that was selling me Michael Jordan autographs that we were selling to these same vendors that bought everybody else from us. And thank God I got letters from all those renowned icons sent to the judge. And during the interview process with the FBI, the guy that was selling me the stuff, I truly trusted him. I believed in him. He told me they were going to try to get him on tax evasion, give him as little information as he can. And I basically lied under oath during the investigation.
Wow.
And they knew they couldn't get me on mail fraud, and they charged me with making a false statement to the FBI. So I'm a proud felon for the rest of my life, which means I can't do jury duty. I still have issues
one positive side of
going
this.
around the world. I get stopped because I have to always check that box about it. Do I have a felony? It's a pain in the ass, man. Here I am 11 and a half years sober and, trying to change and save the world with my message. And I still got to deal with that. But it's a reminder. And it was a crazy learning experience. I was psychotic about trying to offer refunds to everybody because I was so humiliated. And I remember Magic telling me that you're gonna take this experience, you're gonna make lemonades out of lemon, and that God tests great men and women. And He tested me, Darren, with HIV, and He's testing you now. And I was crying my eyes out. We're in a limousine in Atlantic City, and He took me under His wing, and He goes, "You're gonna find the next chapter in your life." And that's when, thanks to my dad and a fly fishing trip in Alaska, as I talk about in the book, I took a shot, and Prince Marketing Group was born.
This is so you were friendly with Magic. You were working with him, but he wasn't a client.
Exactly. I was booking his autograph signings. That was it.
Man, I mean, at the state where your psychology is, you're making money, but you were obviously. It seems like you had this insecurity. You felt unworthy. But here you are with Magic Johnson. With the big guys. Was there something in the back of your head where if you were too open about these things that you were going through, that I guess that relationship with guys like Magic would revere, would not sustain?
I really never had a doubt because they got to know the real me. And once I started Prince Marketing Group and we became so successful professionally for them, again, the personal relationship only got accelerated. It only got tighter and tighter and tighter. And like I said, every single one of them, Hulk, Evil, Magic, Muhammad, Joe, Rodman, I mean, you name it, Chevy Chase, Pamela Anderson, all the icons that I've worked with who were all in their heyday back then. Everybody went through something. So when I knew that things were getting really dark for me and I had the courage to speak up, they weren't going to turn their back on me. I knew it. I didn't even think for a second, too, about the book. Once that came about, and we can get into that later, I'll tell you that there was one person I was going to say, what a dumb idea. It became the greatest thing I've ever done in my life.
You mean to openly talk about?
Yeah, and right aiming high.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you share what it is?
Yeah, well, you can look at it right here. Man, I told Magic about it. He was so absolutely blown away that I was going to tell the story. And I asked him, would you do me the honor of writing the forward? And he goes, baby boy, this is going to be your legacy. You're going to touch the world. You're going to change and save more lives with this than anything you've ever done in your life. Because the world's not going to be a fly on the wall to what it's like in this whole super agent world.
Yes.
But you were living this deep, dark secret. And he goes, I'd be so pissed off if you didn't ask me to write the forward. So, you could just look at the back. The testimonies, Mark Cuban, Jeannie Buss, Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, the list goes on. Yeah. Dr. Drew's on the inside. They jumped at the opportunity when I said, look, I need you guys to give me some support on this through social media. to give me, a quote, lend your voice, whether it's about me, whether it's about adversity or, what you think this book is going to do. And that's when I realized I was onto something special, because I was like, I don't think I could have wrote a business book and got this type of support. There's no way this could have been a Darren Prince book about the agent life, and I would have gotten this type of support. And that just showed me that I knew I was doing the right thing, and I knew that they would never, ever, ever judge me for a split second outside of saying, you're an amazing person for writing this book.
Yeah. There is something about society that they love a comeback story, first of all, but they want to see the human side, almost the darker and the fragile human side of things. And I agree with you. If it was a business book, I don't think there would have been this level of support, because everyone can relate to what you went through from the personal perspective. And I think it's such a powerful book, just helping so many people around the world around this. Now, when you were going through it, you have all of these major celebrities from Jeannie Buss to Mark Cuban. Were they also aware that you were going through this?
Jeannie, I've known a while. Mark didn't realize it when he started doing business maybe 15, 16 years ago, but his brother's in recovery. His brother's a well-known advocate, Brian Cuban. Right, yeah, he's an attorney, and he wrote a book, and so I know it touches home.
Yeah.
Magic's brother in recovery. I mean, everybody's got somebody. It's like I said, whether it's a friend or family member, and to just connect with them at this level. I mean, it was. I remember that first week when the book came out, and it just blew us all away, the social media support that we were getting. And I texted Scottie Pippen. He posted to like 1 million plus on Instagram. And it was just people that I even have a relationship with, not even exclusive clients anymore. And every single person, we just started working with Denise Richards. She posts something to 4 million people on Twitter. It just felt so surreal, because, I wasn't doing anything for them. This was the first time I wanted something about me, but because my heart was pure, it was for me, so I can use my message as a vessel.
Yeah.
Because I knew for such a long time I needed God in my life, but when I wrote this book, I started getting a lot of signs that God needed me a lot more than I needed him, and that was the reason I had to write it.
Yeah. And in many ways, I'm sure a lot of people know people that have addiction problems, but I think personally what really helped me relate was the idea of feeling this unworthiness when you're around these major celebrities. It's this, I think codependency is the word. There's like an actual condition called codependency where they go through the 12-step system.
Yeah.
I think Whitney Cummings talked about this in Tim Ferriss's podcast, so she has this, where it's this idea where you feel such discomfort when other people are going through their own discomfort. Mm-hmm. So you're constantly trying to please other people, but the defect of that is you're never taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. So you can go through maybe a month, maybe 3 months. For Savage, it could be multiple years. Right. But in the end, this is going to lead to a very negative feedback loop. This is similar to what you went through.
Of course.
I know how hands-on you are with the clients that you have.
Yep. 100%. I know. I was in Clearwater Beach the past 2 days. I was trying to see Hulk. He just had back surgery, but he wasn't up for it. And we had a big corporate dinner last night. So my girl and I light out at the pool yesterday at the resort. Took a day off the day before at the beach. And my morning yesterday, there's a Serenity Club on 631 Turner Street in Clearwater Beach. And 10 a.m., that's where I needed to be, around my spiritual brothers and sisters that are trying to live this amazing spiritual life one day at a time, staying sober. And I had a ton of business going on yesterday. But I know that as long as I put that first, that my day is going to fall into place the way it's meant to fall into place. In Clearwater Beach, Florida. I mean, I've gone to meetings in Sydney, Monaco, Anguilla, Paris. Magic and Cookie had their 60th birthday celebration in Saint-Tropez over Labor Day weekend. I found a meeting in Monaco. I found a meeting in Nice.
Yeah.
And I just feel that I get that spiritual connection to put myself first and to get that energy that I need once it gets depleted. So I could be the best Darren Prince that I can be. And it's not even as much as an agent. The agent, like I said, is just the second part of it. To me, the fellowship that I'm a part of, man, is an ego-crushing fellowship. And remember being on Dave Meltzer's podcast, and the way he came out, we cried happy tears. And I just said the Magic Johnsons, the Muhammad Ali's, the Smoking Joe Frazier's, the Hulk Hogan's, the Dennis Rodman. I go, that's bullshit. Like, that's what I do.
Mm.
Who I am is degenerate freaking drug addict, one day at a time, that's living the sober life in the present, trying to give this spiritual gift away to people.
Yes.
You know? And if I remember that, life is as easy as can be.
Right.
Mm.
Right. Yeah, because for you, just having all the success, being an agent is the easy part. You know what you're doing. You know what it takes. You have the mental fortitude.
Yeah.
But to be able to relate to some of these icons and to really be there for them at a human level while also being able to take care of yourself, that's the challenge that we all go through
Exactly.
on a daily basis.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. The question that I did have for you is kind of related to this idea of codependency. How do you allocate your time to make sure that each of the clients that you have feel as special as the other person? Because you've got now a roster of dozens of these amazing clients, and you want to make sure that they're taken care of as best as possible. But how do you, as that one person, allocate your time and energy to make sure that they all feel special? This is something I'm really curious
No,
about.
they all feel the love. It's a great question. You know, I always do it. I always find a way to make sure I'm around every single one of them. And Carmen Electra, I love her to death. She'll text me once in a while. Hey, babe, I know you're busy with other people more important than me. And I'm like, I hate it. He says that. Nobody's more important than anybody. Like, yeah, there's some that make more money or keep us busier, but they're all human beings. And they're great, beautiful people and professional people. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the passion to work so hard for them. But like Chevy's in the middle of this tour, and he's got these enormous, every date sold out with Mills Entertainment, where they do a Christmas vacation screening. And depending on the time of the year, one of his hit movies is playing, and calls me a week ago and said, hey, man, am I going to see you in Dallas this week? And I said, nope. Because how about Syracuse? I said, nope. He goes, Ohio? I said, nope. I go, Chev, my boyfriend is going to be with you, who he loves, for the next 3 dates, but I'll see you on the 27th of December in Milwaukee. He goes, okay, great. I'm glad you're going to be there. So I always just make sure. Magic had a keynote on Sunday, so I flew out with him on his plane, and then me and my girl flew on a red eye to Tampa, and he knows I got to be there with him. You know, Dennis and I are going to a Laker game on Sunday. Charlie, I was at his house 2 weeks ago. I had to go by and go over some business with him, and I went by myself. We sat there, we shot the shit for 2 hours, just laughed our ass off about life, went over some business stuff. Ric Flair and I speak every couple weeks, and same thing with Hulk. I just found, like I said, I find a balance and a way to do it with each and every one of them where I'm always just on top of it. And I think intuitively I know if a few days or a week or something's gone by where I haven't checked in with somebody.
Yeah.
And I'll shoot a text or something. That's all it takes.
And have you always had that? Because as I mentioned, going back to full circle, I do think that's one of your true skill sets that is part of the reason why I guess you're here, is that you're a major super connector, and you have this ability to connect with people and stay connected to people and add value instead of asking. I want to know a little bit about the process. So when you were starting Prince Marketing Group, I know you had some initial connections, but let's say you have an eye on a client. And for people that are listening, this could be a business client. This could be a girl or guy that you want to start dating. What's kind of the process that you go through to have a goal, to have a person that you want to land as a client, and to go through that process from beginning to the end?
I'll put aside my experience because mine is highly unusual.
Yes.
And most people can never even understand or fathom this. That Magic Johnson became my first client, who I met through the memorabilia business, and told me word for word if I don't use him to knock down every door to bring in all the celebrities I can, he was going to fire me. Because it's not how successful he becomes, it's how successful he makes me and everyone else around me, because that's what defines success in life. It's a domino effect.
Yes.
And I couldn't believe he was actually telling me at 26 years old, he's given me the rights to exploit him so I can hire more celebrities as clients.
Wow.
And so again, that's a beyond ridiculous circumstance.
How do you
for
even
most
build that
people.
kind of relationship with him for him to be able to break down all these doors for you? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people.
We already had it for 3 years.
Yes.
But what I realized during that process was, if you want to generalize, and it's not even the world of celebrities, it's building a merchandise business, it's building up your own database with some software technology, t-shirt company. what I learned a lot is came from my dad. You have to know so much about the corporate client. You have to know, what they like, what they don't like, when their birthday is. Find out some information about their family. Find out what their, hobbies are. If they like sports, talk to them about that. If there's a certain team that they like, if there's, some musical act or Broadway show, make little notes of all these little details, because that's what separates you from the rest of the competitors who are out there trying to get their business, but not just get it, but keep it and retain it. Because anybody can get the account one time. It's what you do to keep it and what do you do to retain it. Because there's always somebody around the corner that's going to come around to be better, smarter, wiser, quicker, more successful. And if you don't stay out on things like that, I mean, forget it. I have so many updates that come in on my clients, whether it's birthdays, if they're married, anniversaries, historic moments in their career. That stuff is just so important. And yeah, you don't have historic moments in a corporate business partner, but there's things that you can listen to when you take that time to have breakfast with them, or go for espresso or a coffee, or have a 15-minute phone call once in a while.
Yeah.
You can make that mental note, or put a note, whatever, on your computer where you're notified of something. And that's what makes you different. So when you're reaching out with a birthday for your son or their daughter, or they mentioned they're going away on for their anniversary with their wife, and you just shoot a random text 3 weeks later after you spoke to them, because they're leaving the next day. That's it, man. That's it. That's what makes the difference to me.
It is,
it's just staying on top of those little personal things. And if you're in town and you're from California and the client's in New York, just like I did, I made 5 rounds of business meetings. Each one were 20 minutes in and out. When I was in New York in the freezing cold a month ago, I went to give a keynote speech in White Plains, New York, to a high school. And I just made sure I told everybody, look, I got 20 minutes. That's all it takes. You just got to put that effort in.
Yeah, and it's the small extra little effort to personalize that experience for the connection, that relationship that you have. And I just got an email, because I know a lot of people are doing this now, which is you get an email and there's like ways to personalize by saying like, hey, first name, comma, and then you write the message. Exactly. And it looks like it's personal. One guy did it. He doesn't even put my name. So it says, hey, bracket, first name, bracket, comma. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah.
That
doesn't work.
I mean,
that doesn't work. How many of those did he send out?
Oh, probably 1,000.
I still get emails where my first name, it says Dear Darren, and then you start reading through it and it's got a different person's name. So again, John, let me know when. So you're like, there's an assistant or somebody that's trying to change it up and customize it for each. And
oh my God.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
I love what Gary Vee always talks about with his social. I mean, those little things when he replies to so many different random people, man. That's why he's a machine right now, taking over the world. Those little things mean everything.
Yes.
Everything.
Yes. One thing I do in Christmas is, instead of sending Christmas cards, I would actually record a video to a mentor or a friend, and I would send them like a personalized message, so that I think a card is also great because it's handwritten. But
funny you said that. Let me see if I can pull up mine, because we deal with a company called Send Out Cards.
Okay.
And Send Out Cards are your old school holiday cards, and physical cards. Probably cost me a couple $1,000s every year. I still do it. They just went out literally.
And if you're using it, I definitely wanted to write that.
So they literally just went out yesterday, because we want to make sure people get it around the holidays.
Send Out Cards?
It's called Send Out Cards. Yeah, let me pull this up, because I can show this to you. You'll get a kick out of this. We had Chevy Chase at a Comic-Con for the first time ever a couple months ago. And it was the first time ever there was a vacation reunion from the classic movie. So there's me with Beverly Angela, Chevy, the daughter Audrey, and the kid who played Rusty. So that's our holiday card this year, where it says, Happy Holidays from the Griswolds and Prince Marketing Group. And people look forward to it every year. It goes to all my celebrities. It goes to our corporate clients. They want to know what the theme is each year. It gets like an exciting, buzz around it. And I think we have about 450 clients on the mailing list that it goes out to. We put so much effort into it, because we know they actually care about that little gesture. Like, what's the theme going to be this year? Like, who's going to be on the corridor? Because it's always something unique that nobody else has.
And that's the reputation that you've built at this point now. It's
a little silly freaking holiday card, and it becomes something that people can't wait for every year.
Goes a long way.
Yeah.
Well, Darren, I want to end this off, because I think one of the experiences that I think a lot of people can learn from, a lot of people that are listening, they're go-getters. They're people that are entrepreneurs, highly driven professionals, and I think I love talking about how-to tips around how to get success. But one thing that I know that I think everyone can relate to is the mental health and ultimately trying to avoid, but also dealing with the idea of burnout, which is so common these days.
Yeah.
So I want to know, what's that process that you've learned through the journey that you've been through to take care of yourself mentally, physically? What are some of the things that you do? Because I know you're still just hustling every single day. You're putting in that extra effort for every single client, and you're giving keynote speak. So how do you really take care of yourself?
I'm still in the gym 6 days a week. I work out 30, 40 minutes a day. I diet, pretty discipline wise. I get the proper rest. I say no a lot. A lot of people invite me to a lot of different events. Some of the great events or dinners, and I don't care. Been there, done that. I still have my crew of friends that like to go out and party, and even though they didn't realize how dark and deep my problem was, because I like to consider myself highly functioning. I don't deserve being out after 10 o'clock at night at a function. Nothing good happens after 10 o'clock at night,
yes,
in my opinion.
Yes.
Nothing. So if I go to an event, if I go to dinner, I'm back at my place by 9 o'clock. I just learned to stay disciplined with that. Yeah, occasionally I have to do a business event, red carpet, whatever it might be, or a launch or an activation. I go, and Darren Prince isn't that important that if I leave after an hour that I'm going to be that missed. I see everybody I need to see and I get out of there.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it, like I said, is saying no, taking care of my physical health. My mental health is my 12-step meetings. It's meditation. It's getting this message out there as much as possible, speaking to as many, like I said, high schools, colleges, galas, companies. That just keeps me on the right side, because I get so much more back when somebody's lives or several people's lives are changed and saved in that room at the moment. It just gives me this spiritual intake that's just unexplainable.
It's one of the core messages of the 12-step program, right? Which is, instead of focusing on yourself, give.
To give.
And help people.
The primary purpose is to help another sick and suffering
and that
person.
Fuels your energy, that keeps you going.
And that's it. And then, as far as business, mentors. That's what I tell people. I've been blessed to have some of the best. And if you're the smartest person in any room that you're in, find another room, because you're in the wrong room. And, mentors can save you years and years of heartache, financial hardship. You learn from their losses and you can gravitate towards their success.
Yes.
And, some could be a mentor during that time in your life. You could always find new ones as you evolve into whatever trade or profession or field that you're in. And like I said, I've been blessed. I mean, not many people can say they had, Magic Johnson as one of them for as long as he's been there for me. And, some other, hugely prominent people as well. I think that's just so key. Because you don't want to waste 5, 10, 15 years of your life and lose a ton of money. Just surround yourself with people a lot smarter than you, and you'll get there a lot quicker.
Beautiful. Well, I want to end this off, Darren. First of all, I really appreciate you for coming on. More importantly, for writing this book and having this new focus in your life, which is giving your message to millions of people around the world. We generally leave the interview by giving someone an actionable takeaway. Actionable could be something around the business. It could be something around an addiction, if someone has any addictions, or something that they're going through, to help them get from 0 to 1. Is there any actionable takeaways that someone can do right after listening to?
Well, I'm going to tell you the 5 A's that changed my life were attitude adjustment, action, acceptance, and accountability. So if somebody can remember those 5 and you're struggling with anything in your life, it could be business, it could be a personal struggle with, food, drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be. If you put those 5 together, it's kind of like what Tony Robbins says, and you each day work on that. Every single day, a little bit at a time, those changes will eventually happen in your life and you'll become the person you're meant to be.
Beautiful takeaway. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much for listening. Check out Darren's book, Aiming High, Amazon bestseller. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right. How long did we go there?
About an hour.
But no,
That was an
perfect.
hour.
Perfect.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
You guys have really good voices. Mix as well.
It was good.
Darren's got that deep voice, the keynote speaking voice.